In this video, I'm gonna tell you a few tips that will improve instantly your night video footage on GoPro Hero 7. In my last video, filming outside at night, which I will put the link in the description below, you asked me to do the same video on GoPro. Usually, GoPro is not my go-to camera when it comes to night shooting, but still I decided to give it a try and to use it to the maximum in all the settings that you can imagine, ProTune or the automatic settings, till I reached to a formula that it matched with my workflow, the way I like the shots to be at night, out of such a camera, which you will see in this video. I will share with you the setup that it works for me, which I believe it gives some kind of good footage out of such camera at night, where I was shooting in some dark areas and some areas have a decent light. And of course, I followed some of the tips that I gave in my previous video about shooting at night. So without further ado, let me move on and tell you exactly what works for me step by step. We are now on the menu of the GoPro. To access the settings, you need to press on the resolution and frames per second. It will give you resolution, frames per second, field of view, low light, stabilization, and the ProTune of course is off. When it comes to resolution, I prefer to go for 2.7. I know many people they prefer to shoot 4K, but if you go for 4K, first of all, you will get the codec on HEVC, which cannot be easily edited in Premiere, which is my go-to editing software. However, you can still edit it in other softwares. And the other thing, when you select the 4K, you will lose the stabilization. If you notice here, stabilization is not supported. You will get this message immediately. That's why for my personal taste, I go for 2.7, where I will get the hyper smooth stabilization active. The other thing you need to pay attention to when shooting in automatic, the frame rates. Frame rates, if you keep it 60, you will have access for the low light. However, if you decide to go for 24 frames or 30 frames, you will lose the low light option. That's why if you decide to go for automatic, preferably to keep it at 60 frames per second, where the camera itself will use the low light option on. One more step which is very important, but this I will tell you about when I finish the manual, because this works for both the manual and the automatic shots. Now, to access the manual setup on the camera, you press again the resolution and the frames per second, and here you press the ProTune on. By pressing the ProTune on, you will take full control of your camera. So you can control the shutter, the ISO, the exposure compensation, EV comp, white balance, and all the details. So for me, what I do usually, first of all, I shoot on 24 frames per second, not 60 frames per second. This will guarantee to get the best motion blurs out of my videos. And since I put 24 frames per second, I control also my shutter, which is double my frame rate, and I make it 1/48 of a second. And in this case also, I will get more control when it comes to the motion blur in the footage. The other thing I control as well is the field of view. I like always to keep it on linear, so I will not get that distorted GoPro view, because if I will choose wide or I will choose super view, that will be very much distorted image. So I prefer to go for linear, which will get you more professional look. So I control my frames per second, 24 frames per second. Shutter is double my frame rate. If you notice, the low light ability here is off, because in the automatic, when you put on 60 frames per second, low light ability will be active, that the camera itself, it might go to 24 frames per second or 30 frames per second. And that will affect the look of the image itself, where you will see it a bit robotic when it's in a very dark situations. The other thing I control is the white balance. White balance, I like to keep it on the native, because that will give me more options in post. ISO, minimum 100, and I found out that the best ISO you can get good images out of it is 400. However, if you are really in a very dark scenarios, you can go to 800 maximum. That will introduce noise, but still it can be controlled compared to 1600 or even higher. So maximum ISO, I try to keep it 400 as much as possible. Sharpness, I always use low, because in sharpness I can add it always in post. That's why I keep it low. Sometimes I keep it medium if lighting scenarios are better. Color also flat, it will give me more options in post. So this is mainly what comes for the setup: 24 frames per second, 1/48th of a second for the shutter, field of view linear, stabilization by itself it will be auto, of course Pro Tune on, white balance I keep it native, ISO minimum 100, maximum 400, sharpness is low, color is flat, and that's it for the manual setup. A very important notice here that stabilization still it is auto. However, I noticed that in a very low light scenarios, the stabilization might not work perfectly the way you imagine. If you have a gimbal, I suggest that you use it when it comes to low light scenarios. Coming back to my important tip, which I told you that you can use on both, and you have to use on both actually, is to lock your exposure before you start to shoot. And that you can do easily by just tapping on the screen itself. Long tap, you will get this box, which is the spot meter. Then you put it on the darkest part of your image and you press. Usually the camera will give you this lock icon, which will show you that the exposure is locked, and then you press correct. Now in manual, if you will do this, you will notice that you will not be able to access the shutter and the ISO options, while you can still access the rest. The reason for that, because this will help the camera in giving better exposure and definitely better results. That's it for the camera setup itself. Let's go back to the next step. The next step will be, of course, after you took your footage and you check it up, you will find some grain there, especially if you go to higher ISO. In this case, definitely you need to use the plugins for reducing noise. In my previous video also, I talk about Neat Video plugin for Premiere, doing a fantastic job where you can adjust your footage with a few clicks, and there are lots of other options also that you can dive deep in to get the maximum out of your night footage. I will leave the link in the description below also, if you would like to give it a try and check it up. By the way, all the links in the descriptions are affiliate links, so if you decide to purchase anything through my channel, that will definitely help my channel to grow without charging you anything or any extras. The final tip which I want to share with you, and it will help you a lot, especially in pitch black situations, is to use this bad boy. This is the Aperture Amaran ALMX. And this is an LED light. It is a very strong LED light and lightweight and very small. If you watched my video about the GoPro setup, the ultimate vlogging setup, which is this one, combining this one with this light, it will give you a great results, especially if you are in pitch black. Like I'll give you an example. I was in a place where it was really dark on my face. However, I have behind me a very beautiful subject, and I would like to take a shot at that specific location where I will show the icon of Burj Al Arab behind me, and I will show my face as well. So in this case, what I did, I used this one with the setup, which I will show you right now. So I use this setup and it works perfectly for me. The other thing, while you're having this light on top of the GoPro, you can add also additional softener. I have it here in the same bag that comes with the light itself. And the good thing about it, that they will give you this additional sheet to soften the light. But what you can do is you can just add it on top, and when you switch on the light on, you get additional soft light. And of course, I'm putting the light now on the minimal. If I will increase it, it will be really very bright light, and that's not even the maximum, because there is one more option to boost the light. So this is the Aperture ALMX Amaran ALMX, and this will give you also additional beautiful setup on the GoPro. If you decide to use it for vlogging, you will have everything at the same time with the camera. That's it from my side today. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you like this video, please hit the like button, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you will receive a notification whenever I release a new video. And always remember, let your camera tell your moments. Thank you very much for watching, and see you next time. Okay, you will just sit like this. You will not say anything. Okay, as you wish. Say something. People are watching you.
I wanted to fix my kitchen.
You want me to fix your kitchen? Okay, once I finish, I will fix it.